What's up y'all, Jmaculate here. In today's video, we'll be going over my workflow on the Blackbox by 1010 Music. We'll start by chopping a sample, sequencing a rhythm section, shaping sounds, and putting together a full arrangement. If you're curious about how this sampler works for hip hop, this is the video for you. Let's get to it. We'll start by slicing this sample I found on a record. To get to the slice controls, select the pad you want to chop from the pad screen, then press slicer mode. In slicer mode, you can set slice points by moving the playhead to a place in the waveform, then pressing the split button. You can delete slices by pressing the join button near the slice.
She's small. She's small and dainty and startlingly beautiful. She's gowned in a luminescent and diaphanous material which flows and clings to her body. Her eyes and hair and soft, smooth flesh are of ever-changing hues, sometimes delicate.
Another method for setting slice points is to press the split button as the sample plays. This is similar to the lazy chop method. Now that we finished slicing, let's punch in a quick pattern. All the sequencing on the Blackbox happens on the SEQ page. I'll select an empty sequence, then press Info to see the sequence page. This allows you to view the sequence notes in a piano roll style display, similar to a DAW. I'll also need to change a few of the parameters of the sequence before punching in the notes. By pressing Info again, I can change the length of the sequence to 32 steps. Lastly, I'll change the play mode to keys, which will allow me to sequence the slices within the pad. Okay, let's get sequencing. From the keys page, you can play the slices back by tapping the squares on the display. I'm going to quickly record a sequence with all the slices I want to use, then I'll move them to their correct places from the grid view. You can trigger the sequence recording by holding the record button, then pressing the play button. Now that I've got those on the piano roll, I'm going to shift them so that they trigger every 4 steps. You can select the note to edit with the top left knob, then you can move the notes horizontally with the bottom left knob. Okay, the slices are now in the correct place, but the default tempo on the Blackbox is 120 BPM, so we'll need to change that from the song page. From this page, turning the top left knob changes the value. "83 sounds good, so we'll keep it there. Now let's add some drums. We'll start with the snare. You can load new samples by selecting a blank pad on the pads page, then pressing Info, then Load. From here, you can select files that are saved to the SD card. Once the sample is loaded, you can view the waveform and adjust various parameters. The first thing I'll do is turn loop mode off. I hear a pop at the end of the sample, so I'll also shorten the endpoint of the sample by turning the top right knob, and then I set the release to 0 so the sample doesn't fade out after the endpoint. You can control the displayed parameters like amplitude, pitch, and the filter by turning one of the 4 encoder knobs. Now let's draw in the sequence. Like with the sample chops, I select an empty pattern, then press Info to get to the piano roll screen. Then I draw the snare notes in on the 2 and the 4. Next, I'll load up a kick. After turning off loop mode and changing the endpoint of the sample, I adjust the filter settings. This kick has a lot of higher frequencies, so I'll add a low pass filter and increase the level to give the kick more drive. Now let's sequence the kick. First I'll increase the length of the sequence to 32 steps. I also want quantization off for this track so I can get some ghost notes in the sequence. To disable quantization, you have to press the SEQ button from the sequence info menu. From here, tap the step mode setting and turn the bottom right knob so that it's set to off. Okay, we're ready to record the kick sequence. I'll start by playing the sequence and auditioning where I want the kick. When I'm ready to record it, all I have to do is press the record button while the sequence is still playing, then play the notes. Not bad. But I want to make a small adjustment to the kick sequence. From the sequence page, I can adjust a few parameters of the notes, such as the start time and velocity. Here I make the ghost notes in the sequence quieter by highlighting them, then pressing the event button, then turning the bottom left knob to adjust the velocity parameter displayed in the bottom left corner. I also nudge some of the kicks around so that it has the groove that I'm looking for. And I delete one of the kick notes by tapping it on the grid view. Now I'll load up a hi-hat. I just need to adjust some parameters and then it'll be ready to record to a sequence. Just like the kick, I want the pattern to be 32 steps long, and I want quantize off so I can get the notes off grid. Unfortunately, there isn't a 16 levels mode where you can use different pads to change the velocity of the notes, so I'll record all the notes at the same volume and then adjust the velocity manually after. From the sequence screen, I moved some of the notes around that I played too early or too late. Then I adjust the levels of some of the steps, just like how I did with the kick. I'll add an open hat to the sequence as well. First, I change the launch mode to gate from the config screen so that when I let go of the pad, the sample stops playing. Then I adjust some of the sample parameters. Alright, let's record it in. Unlike with the other samples, which I recorded to their own sequences, I'm going to add the open hat to an existing sequence, the one that has the closed hi-hats. Now that I have it recorded in, I'll delete the closed hi-hat note right above the open hat so it doesn't clash. Just a few more drum sounds to go. Next up is a tambourine loop I found in a sampled drum break. I want to control the groove of these sounds, so I add some quick slices and then adjust the start point of those slices. I really only want the higher frequencies of the tambourine in this loop, so I add a high pass filter and shave off some of the unwanted frequencies. last up is a quick snare roll. The snare sequence is still in step mode, and is only 16 steps long, so I change it to 32 steps, and I turn off quantization so I can nudge the snare roll if I need to. I've built up the rhythm section, so now I want to circle back to the sample chops and play something more interesting. I'm also going to turn quantization off so the sample chops feel a bit more loose. I originally set the sequence to 32 steps, but I want to play more chops after this, so I increased the step count to 64 and play the rest of the chops. I want to add one more sequence of sample chops. Let's see if I can get this in one take. Alright, the sample chops are sounding much better. Now let's add some bass. I've got this nice upright bass sample loop, but instead of using the loop, I'll adjust the start point so that it's just a single note that I can play chromatically. I also need to set the sample to gate launch mode so that when I release the note, it stops playing immediately. And lastly, I'll adjust the filter resonance and amplitude of the sample to cut out some of the high-end frequencies and boost the sound. Okay, let's sequence a quick bass riff. I'll select an empty sequence and change the settings so it's 32 steps and with quantization off. Now that I have the 32 steps sequenced, I'll extend the length of the sequence to play in the second half. and we still need to add a bass line for the other sample chop sequence. This arrangement's close to complete, but I want to add a few more sounds. Let's try adding a horn and a piano. The Blackbox is a powerful sampler in a compact form. Build quality is top-notch, and the sampling workflow and sequencing are pretty intuitive once you've gotten a few reps in. File management is also superb. I think the main challenges of using this device are making changes to the piano roll using the touchscreen, and only being able to load 16 samples at a time. It's also lacking in a few other features that similarly priced samplers have, like sample edit functions such as normalize or silence, as well as complex effects. Still, there's a lot under the hood and many things I've never even tried using, like the granular synthesis engine or any kind of MIDI implementation, but maybe those are things I can cover in a future video. Well, that does it for this one. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
She is small and dainty and startlingly beautiful. She's gowned in a luminescent and diaphanous material which flows and clings to her body. Her eyes and hair and soft, smooth flesh are of ever-changing hues, sometimes delicate, sometimes vibrant, and